to all of you. We're so glad that you decided, made the choice to come and be with us today. We especially thank JJ for that long drive that she made yesterday. I think it was about 11 o'clock before she got in last night. So thank you for doing that. We really appreciate it. When you drove over here today, did you happen to notice all the beauty that's around us? I mean, it is just a gorgeous spring, a wonderful reminder of our Creator and the beauty that He put around us for us to really enjoy. So if you didn't do it coming over, do it going home. JJ's going to tell us why she goes by JJ. Because I asked her to, and her bio's in the program. And hopefully all of you got a program. There's 2 inserts in there that go with each session today. Those are from JJ. So that will help us to get even more from being here. The bathroom situation, got to tell you about that. There's 2 back there, straight back. Women on one side, men on the other, but we've cleared the men's. Nobody's going to be in there. So if the women's is full, go to the men's. And for Central ladies, if you would go other places in the building, if it seems to be crammed full, go to another one in the building. Now, there's 3 things I want you to think about as we get started. First thing is, take your hand, put it up like this, down like this. I want you to pat yourself on the back because you made a choice to be here today. And anytime we can come together to learn more about our Father and Jesus and the Holy Spirit, and they're here with us, and we can be with our sisters in Christ, that's a great decision. And I'm sure that we have all pleased the Lord through coming here today because we have shown Him that He matters in our lives and that we want to be here and hear more about Him to make our lives what He wants them to be. The second thing is, I want you to look down at your feet. And I want you to be where your feet are. You know, a lot of times we come to things like this and we get distracted by other things that are going on in our minds. I'm sure a lot of you had to jump through hoops, making arrangements to get here today. So be where your feet are. So for the next 2.5 to 3 hours, be here, be present in your mind, and focus, and try to push out all that distraction from your mind. And the third thing is, I want you to do this. What that's saying is, I'm open to receive. When we walk around like this, we're closed off. But today, we want to be open to receive whatever God has planned for each of us individually through listening to JJ. Arlene?
Good morning. We're going to go to God in prayer at this time. Dear Heavenly Father, we just pause this day and thank you for the many blessings that you give us in reverence and awe and praise. We thank you so much for this wonderful day you've given us, this beautiful day you've given us, to remind us of you and new life and your beauty and in your creation. We thank you, Lord, for this opportunity to meet together as women in Christ in fellowship and to learn more about you through the message from our speaker, JJ. We thank you also, Lord, for all these ladies who have made this sacrifice to be here. And may you bless their time with us. And we know that anything about you is never void. We thank you for our speaker, JJ, for making a long trip to come here. And Lord, we ask that you help her to recall all that she's prepared for us. And may us all be attentive to this message. May we take it with us in our Christian walk. And may we share and encourage others for your name's sake. We thank you, Lord, for all the many blessings that you give to us, which are really too numerous to count. And we give all praise and honor and glory in those blessings, but especially in the blessing of your Son, Jesus Christ, who you gave to us as an atoning sacrifice for our sins, so that we may have life, we may have abundant life in Christ, both now and forevermore. And it's in Jesus' great and holy name that I pray. Amen.
Good morning. I'm so excited because I got to use my bookmarks in my songbook. So we marked our songs here. We're ready to roll. We're going to start with number 577. We Bow Down. Listening instead of singing. So it sounds amazing up here. You really should try it. So we are on number 719, Love One Another. This is more commonly known as Angry Words, if you were confused why we were singing 4 parts in an all-girl room here. And I'm going to sing this a little faster because this is supposed to be a song of encouragement. So we want to encourage each other. So, angry words will let them never from the unbridled slip. May the hearts as simple ever shed their merry soil love and live. Love one another, blessed the Savior, children obey the Father's command.
Good morning. The scripture reading this morning is Proverbs chapter 31, verse 30. Proverbs chapter 31, verse 30. Charm is deceptive and beauty is fleeting, but a woman who fears the Lord is to be praised.
Y'all, Meredith had me nervous. She said, put your arm up like that, and I thought, we are checking arm flab. And that is not, I was not prepared for that today. Y'all remember, did y'all have like those physical fitness tests back in the 80s? You remember those where they like did the pinch thing? Millennials haven't had to do that, have they? They've done away with that. Y'all have gotten away with not having to do that humiliating thing where they took this little pincher. Did y'all have that? You know what I'm talking about? That pincher thing and checked your back flab. And it was just like, that was so embarrassing. And of course, none of the boys had back flab, you know. But she wanted me to talk about my name. And this is the story that Mom gave me. And Mom is no longer with us. So cannot be verified, but we're going to go with it because I like it. It's a good story. But apparently I was a twin at birth, and my twin did not survive, which is not terribly uncommon. And one of us was going to be named Jennifer, one of us was going to be named Jill. And so when the twin did not survive, I took on both names. So my name is Jennifer Jill. But, you know, what do you call them? And there apparently was a TV show at the time, JJ and the Governor or something like that. And my dad's like, let's just call her JJ, which worked out really well for me because in 1973, everybody named their daughter Jennifer. So, no, for real. It was like the Emma of 2002. So everybody named their child Emma, including me. But I had 7 Jennifers in kindergarten in my class. In my kindergarten class. So I've always been very grateful to have a nickname, to have something other than Jennifer. And so I've gone through my entire life being JJ. I was only Jennifer Jill when I was in trouble, and that was often, but you know, I'm good. And my kids even called me JJ because as we were having our 2 girls, my husband was a youth minister at that time, and so all the kids called me JJ, right? And so no one called me Mama, and I didn't think I should start telling her to call me Mama. So I have always, in a very, like in a sweet way, not like JJ, you know, but they all called me JJ because, so I knew that when I became a grandmother, things are going to change. I am not going to be JJ as a grandmother. And years ago, I went to see my little sister in a play or something like that, and there was this sweet little family in front of us, and they had saved a seat for the grandmother, and so she was across the way, and she was like Arlene, she was beautiful. How do you look that? I need some face cream or whatever you're using. We'll talk later, and that's what a lesson's about, kind of, you know, looking like Christ, right? So there was a beautiful lady coming in, and they said, "Boo, Boo, we've got a seat for you over here." And I thought, that's going to be my grandmother name. My girls weren't even out of high school, you know. But that's going to be my grandmother name, right? Because it's not that common. It's not very common. I thought that's, you know, kids can say that. That's going to be their first word, right? So 2 years ago, our oldest had a baby. Didn't tell us she had a baby. Did not tell us she had a baby. We knew she was pregnant, but and it was kind of during COVID, so I kind of get it too. I'm not mad. I think it's kind of wonderful the way they did. They just went in and had that baby and FaceTimed me holding that little nugget. And I was like, what? And she's like, yeah, he's here. And so he's just precious and probably a genius, and his name is Beckett. And I told her, I said, I want to be Boo. That's the name I want to use. Can you teach him to call me Boo? And she's like, sure. Do you know what she told him to call me? And what he calls me? Bougie. And it's the sweetest thing I've ever heard in my life. Bougie? I can't change it, right? If you don't know what that means, look it up. I mean, Just going to own it, but it's sweet. And then our youngest born daughter had a baby about 7 weeks ago, little Cora Rose. And she's just the opposite. She wanted us like right there the whole time. My husband and I were with her and prayed that baby into the world. Isn't it crazy how you have kids that are so different and they came from the same parents? But it's such a blessing. Okay, where am I? I drove so much, but this is such a beautiful country. Like I've never been here. And I thought, my husband does, he's done CYC for 25 years and so we're used to Pigeon Forge in that area. And so I'm driving, I'm like, how long is Tennessee? Really? How long is Tennessee? Because I'm from Florida, and you can cross the state. You can cross the state in 2 hours. You can go from Cocoa, Florida to Tampa, straight across East Coast to West Coast, 2 hours time. I've done it 100 times. And so I was like, this state is very long. And I feel like, in a sense, it's really a lot like North Alabama. It's really beautiful, but y'all have mountains. But last night, I was driving, and I was like, well, there's Sevierville. Like, I am not there yet. That's my normal stop. Because, and also, I want to talk to you about something else we do there, which I'll talk to in just a second. But what a beautiful part of the country. I feel so official being up here. And I'm so, like, not formal. And I hope that's okay. And if y'all agree with something today and you want to say, yes, I agree with that, this is not a worship service. Hopefully we're glorifying God. And there's no men to usurp authority here either. So if you want to talk to me, you definitely can, and I'll appreciate that. So who's concerned with how they look? To some degree. Even if you say, I don't really care, sometimes we want to be a little bit concerned with how we look. And not just I want to present myself in a certain way, so I'll be viewed that way. I mean, it's just, as women, we want to look nice. We want to look nice for our husbands. We want to look nice for whatever job we have. We're supposed to dress for the job we want, right? Not the job we have. Have you heard that? I've heard that too. Right, and that typically happens. I remember seeing years ago a preschool teacher, and every day I saw her, I was thinking, you are not dressing like a preschool teacher. Because, in preschool, you're on the ground, you're rolling around, you're wiping bottoms, you're, doing all the things like that. And I thought, look at you, you're not dressed like a preschool teacher. She's not a preschool teacher now. She's definitely not a preschool teacher now. You dress for the job you want, right? Anyway, so I feel like, we're aiming to look nice, the outward appearance. But what the real true aim is to be like Christ. That's it. And I always feel so unworthy when I'm asked to speak because I'm just a sinner. I am. And I find it very important to not put myself in a different boat than anybody else. And when we're evangelizing and we're talking to people about Christ, I want to make sure that that's understood. I'm not on some different spiritual level than anybody else. I'm learning, I'm struggling, I'm working towards heaven just like everybody else is, okay? And but it's hard for me not to speak when I'm asked just because I can't wait to tell you what God has done for me. Okay, and that's just so exciting. I also feel like that where we are, and I don't know if it's a millennial type situation or what, but we've been very aware that a lot of people that we are talking to now have zero religious experiences, like none. And so I'm not going to assume that we all grew up in the church today. So if I take a little bit of time and tell a little background of a story, that's why. Because in our experience where we are in Alabama, a lot of the people that we're evangelizing now have only been in church for a funeral or a wedding. And so they don't have any kind of, I can't say, remember Jonah, and they don't know who that is, okay? So I'm going to speak to you in that way if that's okay. We are constantly transforming. We're constantly becoming somebody else. And as women, we really are, aren't we? Go ahead and turn to 2 Corinthians 3:18 while I'm speaking about this. As women, we are like sisters, possibly. We're daughters. We might become wives. We might be an aunt. We might become a mother, a grandmother. We may have a role. We might be a teacher. We might be a confidant. We have like different roles that we play, and we're still the same person. I teach kindergarten through 12th grade, and every day I teach a high school chorus class that's a pretty skilled high school chorus class. Sight read really well, do a really great job at competition, all the things. And then I teach a kindergarten class next, right after it. And you can't speak to high schoolers like you speak to kindergartners. You can't speak to kindergartners like you can speak to high schoolers. I had a first grader years ago, and I think she was struggling with some asthma, but she was coughing and just coughing, and couldn't even speak to me. And I said, sweet girl, you just go get some water, do what you need to do. Go ahead and leave the classroom. And she left the room, and everything was really quiet, and I said, she has got to stop smoking. And I thought that was so funny, and no one, first grade. And finally, one little boy said, I don't think she smokes. I'm so sorry. I'm in first grade now. See, high schoolers would have thought that was really funny at Morrisville Bible School. Not so much. 2 Corinthians 3:18, and this coincidentally is the verse that we use for Transform Ladies Conference. We are being transformed into the same image of the Father. But we all, with open face, beholding as in a glass the glory of the Lord, are changing into the same image from glory to glory, even as the Spirit of the Lord. That's our goal. I don't want to stay the same. I don't want to stay the same. I want to grow. I want to look at myself tonight and be like, I grew. I did something that helped myself spiritually. I got closer to God. Is it every night that I can go to bed and say that? Absolutely not. But that's the goal. That's what I want. And Larry, my husband, does Challenge Youth Conference there at the LeConte Center in Pigeon Forge, and I do a ladies conference, Transform Ladies Conference. I don't know if y'all have been before. It's just our third year this year. It's in September, tlcladies.org. And it's wonderful, and check it out, and I think you would really love it. And it's close by. What are y'all, an hour? An hour maybe-ish? Something like that? Close by. But in order to fully appreciate the goodness of God, I think it's important to look at some things that Jesus went through that maybe weren't so pleasant. Because we always, kind of skim over it, but he had a rough life even before the cross. At one time, he was pretty much hated by his family, pretty rejected. There was times that he was hungry, times that he was asked to leave, he was unwanted. And he didn't really have during his ministry, he didn't really have a home. He didn't have a home base. He didn't have a place to go to. But despite all of this, he was kind. He was compassionate. He was forgiving. He sat with the unwanted. He talked to the sad. He healed the sick. He played with the children. He touched the lepers. Sometimes we don't have everything we need, but we can still be kind. We can still do what we're supposed to do, even though we're needing something. And, sometimes circumstances make us bitter. What is that saying? You get bitter or you get better when you have something happens. And church hurt, that's real stuff, isn't it? When the people that are like your family, the people that are supposed to be there for you and be praying for you, and they're not acting right. But we've got to remember, we're sinners. Okay, this isn't a place where everybody comes and everything's perfect. This is a place where real people come with real problems. Sometimes we have problems that are our fault. Sometimes we have problems that we had nothing to do with, and we just have to deal with them, right? And church hurt is hard. And what is this saying? Hurt people, and everybody's been hurt. I could go down the line here, we're not. But I could go down the line, and you could tell me a story that would break my heart, couldn't you? How somebody hurt you. But you know what? If I really think about it, I've hurt people too. Sometimes unintentionally. But can we still reflect Christ when we're hurt? Because that's a real thing. And I want to kind of focus on the fact that Jesus was not always just in a perfect situation. Actually, he usually was not. And so let's look at two characters in the Bible that still reflected God. I'm going to say God because they're Old Testament, but they still were reflecting the light even when they were hurt. So the story of Joseph's father, Jacob, actually is tricked into marrying a girl he did not want to marry. It's his sister, Leah. I don't know if she had bad eyesight. I don't know if she wasn't pretty, but the Bible said she was like weak of eyes, right? Has anybody done any research into that? I need to do some research. But one or the other. She either couldn't see really well or nobody wanted to see her. One or the other, okay? I don't know which one it is. I'm not going to say because I wasn't there. But he accidentally marries the sister and has to work another 7 years to marry Leah, the one that he really wanted to marry. And so when Leah has a bunch of babies, and Rachel, the one he really wanted to marry, can't have children. And then all of a sudden she gets pregnant and has this baby, and its name is Joseph. And of course, Joseph becomes the favorite. And Joseph has a lot of brothers, because of the other wife, Leah. And so there's 11 brothers, and they're very jealous because the dad is playing favorites. Jacob is playing favorites, which is difficult. You can't do that. You can't do that. But Joseph has made some mistakes as well. He had these dreams that the brothers are bowing down to him and things like that. Probably not a good thing to tell. I would just probably keep that in my heart, Joseph. I had this dream. You didn't look very good. Everybody's bowing to me. I probably won't tell people that, but he told them. And he had a succession of dreams. Well, finally his brothers have had it. They're done. They're over it. And so they decide they're going to actually kill him. And then at the last minute, they're like, no. A couple of them are like, no, don't kill him. Here's some Egyptians coming by. Let's just sell him into slavery. And that's going to be a hard life. That's going to be tough for him. And so they sell him into slavery. And he ends up in prison, okay? It's kind of a long story, paraphrase. He ends up in prison, and Potiphar's wife thinks he's really attractive and wants to kiss him, we'll say. I'm looking at my audience. Yes, we'll just say he wants to kiss him. And he was like, no, that's not okay because you're married. Good for you, Joseph. And she ends up getting mad because he won't kiss her and says, oh, he's tried to attack me. Well, now, he's really in trouble. And he's basically left for dead. He's in a foreign country. Nobody knows where he is because the brothers have gone back to the dad and convinced him that he's died. Lied. Can you imagine putting your dad through that? They had to watch him grieve. They didn't actually say he died, but they dipped this coat that his father had given him, and it had a lot of colors on it, and it was really special. And they dipped it in animal's blood and was like, oh, look at this coat now. So that's pretty much a lie, isn't it? Kind of making him think that he died. He was wrongfully imprisoned. But I want you to look at what Pharaoh says, because all of these things had happened to Joseph in his life. And this wasn't in a year. This was over a long period of time. So his whole life, he was away from the people that loved him. He was basically left for dead. And the brothers never went back and checked on him. And he still did what was right. Let's look at Genesis, and it's in chapter 41. And so he's in Pharaoh's house. He's had a succession. Well, he's able to interpret dreams. And a lot of things happen there. It's such a great story. If you don't know the story of Joseph, it's really, really good. In verse 38, the Pharaoh says to his servants, can we find such a one as this, a man in whom the Spirit of God is? So Pharaoh, someone that doesn't know God, not a church person, okay, is looking at Joseph and is like, wow, look at that man. He has the Spirit of God. Can people say that we're reflecting Christ like that? Do people look at us and say that about us? I wonder. Joseph was in a horrible situation and still reflected God so much that Pharaoh noticed it and commented on it. There's a super good friend of mine, Tanya Collins is her name. I've talked about her. I have a little Facebook group called Equipped. If you're interested, it's free, and I just do devotionals on there twice a week. It's just something you can pop on and look at, but I've talked about her on there. And Tanya taught at Mars Hill. Her husband's a minister, and they live in Texas now, but while she was there, when she enters the room, she is like sunshine. I had never seen her mad. I have never seen her angry. I've never seen her frustrated. And her husband's the same way. It's very infuriating for me because I can't be like that. But such a bad attitude, JJ. But one day we were in the workroom. And I said, Miss Collins, I just want to be like you when I grow up. And she just smiled, and one of my friends, Julie, came through, another teacher, and she said, that'll never happen. Julie's a realist. Yeah. But you just see people like that who are just sunshine and warmth and just filled with the Spirit, and you're like, man, I just need a little bit of that. I need some of that. And that's the way I feel about Joseph. Even though he had everything against him, even in prison, he still made good on the things that he could. I'm going to look at the story of Daniel as well. Daniel was another man that reflected God through times of trial. He also lived in such a way that 2,500 years ago, as a prisoner of war, he was carried away, captive by the army that slaughtered his people. So he is now living with the people that killed his family, his people, destroyed his nation. His name was changed. His manhood was stripped from him. His religion taken from him as well, as much as possible, they thought. And he only had 3 friends that understood what he was going through. So Daniel, the king, decreed that they were all to bow to this idol. And Daniel decided that he was not going to do that. But the king got so upset about it that he threw him into the lion's den. But the lions' mouths were closed, and God was with him. And he stood reflecting God before the king of Babylon. Let's look at Daniel chapter 5. And I think it's so interesting what people say about you, what people see about you. Chapter 5 and verse 14. This is what the king says of Daniel. I have heard of thee, that the Spirit of God is in thee, and that light and understanding and excellent wisdom is found in thee. So the king didn't know Daniel, but he had heard of them. He had heard of him. I think it's, oh wait, I gotta tell you a super, really gross part of the story. Look at, where is it? Look at chapter 6, verse 24. Oh, okay. And so the king gets really mad at the people that accused Daniel, because Daniel's a good guy, right? He just didn't want to serve his idol. And so, well, no, it was bowing to the king. That's what it was, wasn't it? They wanted him to bow to King Darius, right? It was supposed to, anyway, he was supposed to bow to something other than God. I feel like I'm really echoing. Should I do something different? Just go with it. Okay. All right, so in chapter 6, verse 24, that actually sounds better already. The king commanded that they brought those men that had accused Daniel, and they cast them into the den of lions. So they put those men into the den of lions, right? And their children and their wives, and the lions had the mastery of them and broke all of their bones before they even got to the bottom of the pit. What a miserable death is that? Sometimes there's things in Scripture that I'm like, I never saw that. I mean, it's kind of gross, but still. So the lions leapt up and broke all of their bones before they even got down there. It's really nasty. If you're ever teaching little boys' class, they'd love that. Yeah. But who is saying good things about us? Well, we had a former person that was in our youth group years ago that came to interview at Mars Hill to teach, and I was so happy to march myself down to the principal's office and be like, listen, we need this person. This is such a good person. And it's so wonderful to be able to say good things about people. You know, it's so great to be able to say, oh, I can vouch for this person. This person's going to do a great job, and she is, because they hired her. So you're welcome. So when we meet someone new and they've heard of us, what do they say? Like, what was said to them? Oh, she's got a temper. Be careful. Don't mess with her. You don't want to get on her bad side. She'll let you have it. She'll dish it out. She'll unfriend you if you're not careful. I mean, we've kind of said these things about people before, haven't we? Or maybe even thought it. What's being said about us? And we can't control that, right? But we can control how we're projecting ourselves. We can control what we look like for other people, how we're handling things. And hopefully we're handling things in a godly manner, even though we'll never be like Miss Collins. Listen, back to Miss Collins. Her husband, like I said, is the same way. That teacher that's just light and love and everything. And I taught her daughter. And one day I said, Carissa, are your parents like this at home? Because, is it just a show? Like, you can tell me. Like, and she said, isn't that horrible? And she said, they really are. And I'm like, always? And she said, yeah. And I said, do they fight? And she said, I've never heard them. Now, this is a 16-year-old telling me this. She said, I've never heard them fight. And I was like, Carissa, come on, like ever? And she said, no. And she said, as a matter of fact, one time they were both kind of trying to go through the doorway. And my mom stopped and she said, oh, no, you go first. And my dad said, oh, no, honey, I want you to go first. And they argued about who was going to go through the door first. And I was like, I'm done. I don't want to hear anymore. Julie is right. It's not going to happen. But, to get in that, and I think some of that is just having our minds off of this and onto this. And that's so hard, isn't it? It's just a little side note. That's what Transform Ladies Conference is about. The theme is heavenly, and it's about keeping our mind there. Because as Meredith was saying, look at your feet, be here. I love that. Be present, be here. Get your mind on things, because I don't know about you, but my ADHD sometimes is in overdrive. I'm not taking that lightly. It's a real thing. And I'm thinking about 15 different things to do. Yeah, all at the same time. And so, and I want people to say good things about you, and I know we're not perfect, but it's a process, right? I want to be better this year than I was last year. We don't stop trying to grow. And we all have sinned, and we all have a past, and that's something that's hard to get over too. But just because you sinned in the past does not mean you can't be an advocate for that now, that you can't be against that now. Does that make sense? I think sometimes people get stuck in their sin. Well, I did this when I was 17 years old, and everybody knows about it. And I'll never be able to, to talk about God, that they won't bring that up. Actually, I use that. Use that, because the people that I'm speaking to, they've sinned as well. Use it. And tell how God forgave you. I think it's hard to forgive ourselves, though, isn't it? It's very hard to forgive ourselves. But don't let people use your past to invalidate your current mindset. Don't let people use that, okay? And you don't use that either, because that's the hardest part. To be in his image. Okay, number one, you got your sheets ready? I'm old school. I just like paper. And PowerPoint makes me nervous. One time I was using PowerPoint years ago, and I was like 8 slides in before I realized that my folder was on the PowerPoint button. And so I'm just like, you know what? Here we go. We're going old school. To be in his image, to reflect Christ, we need to give. We need to give. Give your time, give your money. I'm going to go fast here because I want to get you, I want to be on time. So we went to a church where the older ladies did everything. And they wanted the young moms to bring their babies to church. That's it. You bring them to church. We'll teach. We do the bulletin boards. We do all the things. And I was like, look at that. And I had young kids at the time. They're like, you do enough. You get them to church. We've got it from here. How great is that? Instead of, I've done this for 45 years. I'm tired. Because I know that that's a thing too. But they just wanted those young moms to be able to sit in worship and to be able to, not have to worry about getting there early and not bringing food to the potluck. They even did that. How great is that? It's different. I love it. Give. When we first got married, I was still in college, and my husband had a great job. He was a NASA engineer, but we were house poor. Do you know what that means? That means that we had a condo on the beach, and it cost a lot of money for us to be in that condo on the beach, and that's where all of our money went to. And so we were house poor. And I remember one certain month I had to buy a lot of books and things like that from school, and just a lot of extra expenses. Car tags. You don't think about that kind of stuff before you're married. You know, you got to get car tags and insurance and all the little things that you have to do. And so I did the math, and I said, listen, we have got more months than we have money. So I can tell you, I mean, we're not even talking just eating ramen. We're going to be out of money before, before the end of the month. And so my husband said, oh, okay. He said, well, give some more in contribution. I said, no, we don't have money. Like, we don't have money to give in contribution. I was actually thinking maybe like skip this week and double up later or something like that. And he says, no, put in something extra, whatever you can find. And I was like, you are insane and you are not listening to me, because it's math. It's math. And I mean, I know what you're bringing in. I'm in college, we're hustling, but still. And so he's like, JJ, I'm just telling you, it's going to be okay. And I was like, well, it's not. But okay, so I gave $10 extra. I wrote that check for $10 extra, and not with a good attitude. I'm going to put that out there, okay? I did not have faith that God was going to make that okay. I didn't have experience that told me that was going to make it okay. I was like 19. And so, I'm married really young, don't ask. But I wrote that check, and I put it in there, and I'm thinking, this is not okay. I mean, I'm trying to think of what we've got in the pantry. And, so that's Sunday. On Monday, my husband gets this phone call. Now, he's in the military. He's in the Naval Reserve. He served there as a chief naval officer. He retired after 22 years. And if you know anything about military people, they know when the bonuses happen. They know. It's like mapped out. They know when they're supposed to get a bump in pay. They know that they get retirement at like 62 and a half. It's weird, but they know all of these things. And so my husband's on the phone with his CO, and he gets off the phone, and he's like, hey, check the bank account. I'm like, well, okay, but I know what's not in there. And so I check it, and he had gotten a $200 bonus. Now we're talking, this is like in the 1991 or something like that. And I was like, what is this for? That was a lot of money. That used to be a lot of money. I was like, what is this? He goes, I don't know. They said it was like a leadership bonus. It's brand new. Never done it before. Why did that happen? I'm just putting it, this happened. The next day I go to school. Tuesday I had a piano lesson. I'm a music major, right? I'm in school. I have a piano lesson with a really mean piano teacher from South Africa. Her name was Pauline Lewis. She was so mean, but she was so good. I cried every day after the lesson. And anyway, so I'm playing Rachmaninoff, mind you, playing. And in the middle of my piece, she says, oh, stop. And I was like, what have I done now? And she gets up and she goes over to this stack of papers, and she grabs this envelope and she goes, this is for you, in her little South African accent. And I said, what is this? And she said, oh, it's a check. I give scholarships to students. And I said, what? And she said, it's $100. And it's from this family, and I choose which piano student gets to get this scholarship. And I said, well, I've already paid for my book. She said, no, it's made to you. You write them a thank you letter. And I was like, I will do that. Don't tell me that's not God. That God cannot bless what he does not have. He cannot bless what he does not have. Okay? Just trust him. And I could tell you story after story after story after story that I've been like, how are we going to get through this? What's going to happen? What now? We're in this really bad situation, and God's been like, I got this. Because we didn't keep things from him. We gave our time, we gave our love, we gave our energy, we gave our money. He can't bless what he doesn't have. So give. Number 2, to be in his image, we have to be grateful. Gratitude grows godliness. If you've ever listened to any of my equips, I start the day with an attitude of gratitude, because gratitude grows godliness. If we are thankful, I think that we are closer to how Jesus was. John 6:11 says he gave thanks at the raising of Lazarus. In John 11:41-42, so they took away the stone, and Jesus looked up and said, Father, I thank you that you have heard me. I knew that you always hear me, but I said this for the benefit of the people standing, that they may believe that you sent me. Jesus took time thanking his Father. If you start with an attitude of gratitude, it will change your life. My husband and I used to jog, and we're not going to say run because I wasn't, but we used to do a lot of jogging, and we would list the things that we were grateful for. It's life-changing. It is life-changing to focus on the things that you are thankful for and not the things you need. Because that's what we are. We're consumers, aren't we? I need this. God, I need you to do this. God, I need you to fix this. Be grateful. And write down the things you're thankful for. You've got some paper. Just jot something down if you're thinking about it. Write what you're grateful for. We have, okay. I'm going to save that story for the next one. Number 3, to be in his image, we have to be sorry. We live in a cursed world. Mistakes are going to happen. We have to continually ask for forgiveness, and we've got to handle things correctly, and we don't always do that. And when we don't, we need to say we're sorry. And that's a really great lesson. It's a really great lesson. It's good for my kids to see me say I'm sorry. It's good for me to apologize to my children when I don't handle things correctly. They need to be around people that ask for forgiveness. Isn't that important? So that they'll do that too, and not just assume that, I prayed and, it's going to be okay. And we need to forgive. Sometimes that's hard, isn't it? Because sometimes we have to forgive people that don't ask for forgiveness and don't deserve forgiveness. But you know what? I don't either. Colossians 3, verses 12 through 14. Put on, therefore, as the elect of God, holy and beloved, bowels of mercy, kindness, humbleness of mind, meekness, long-suffering, forbearing one another, and forgiving one another. If any man has a quarrel against any, even as Christ forgave you, so also do you. And above all of these things, put on charity, which is the bond of perfectness. We are called to be forgiving people. And I want to forgive because I don't want things to be held against me because I'm not forgiving someone else. But it's hard to do sometimes, isn't it? It's hard to forgive people. Well, we got to do it, and it's very freeing. Have y'all ever let go of something you've held on for a couple of years? Just me? Yeah. I can remember much less mature, much younger JJ hanging on to stuff that hurt me for years. And then one day just feeling like, why am I doing this? Why am I upset about that? And just forgiving. And you can even forgive people that aren't even here anymore. You can do that. Okay? And sometimes that helps us a whole lot to do that. Number 4, to be in his image. We need to bring others to him. Jesus was surrounded by people. We need to encourage others, maintain good relationships. That takes work, doesn't it? Invite people into your home. Things change with your relationship when you invite people into your home. Something good happens. There's something more personal there about inviting others in. We're called to be a light like Jesus was a light in John 8:12. Be a light and be careful about your friendships. I have a theory about friendships. I feel like your inner circle, your girls, your ones that are really close to you, you need to be helping them be a better Christian. Or they need to be helping you be a better Christian. Okay? And if neither of those two things are happening, they don't need to be in that tight circle. You can be kind, you can still have them over, but they're not influencing you positively, and you're not influencing them positively. What's happening here? But they're so fun. And they get together and they have these birthday things and they give good gifts. Be careful. Bad company corrupts good morals. When does that stop? Is that just for children? No. Y'all have seen it, haven't you? In my adult life, I've had to distance myself from people because this is not good. And I'm not helping them be a better Christian. They're not into that. They're not wanting that. I can still let my light shine, right? But maybe not have them in my close inner circle. So who do we reflect most clearly this past week? The world or Christ? Because that's the two options. That's all there is. Don't make things more difficult than they are. Did you reflect Christ in your behavior, in your words, in your attitude, in your compassion, in the way you handled poor or needy or dejected people or people that were hungry? I've decided at this point in my life, if somebody is asking for something, I'm just going to give it to them. I'm just going to give it to them. And there was a time that I'm like, they're probably just going to go buy cigarettes. Oh, listen. So I had to run to Walmart this morning. And I'm not going to tell you why, but I had to go to Walmart this morning really fast. And I got out of the car, and everybody that was walking in Walmart was smoking. Everybody. And I was like, I'm just going to smell like smoke at this ladies' day. And I was a little concerned about it. And the closer I got, the more I realized, no, it's just that cold. They're not smoking. I was like, Johnson City, what are you doing? That really happened. But, are we reflecting Christ? And, and I needed to have a good attitude about those people, even if they were smoking, in our attitude. 1 Corinthians 15:33 is what I was referring to. Bad company corrupts good morals. This does not stop just because we're older. This is still it, and we've got to be careful who we surround ourselves with, okay? Be really careful about that. Number 5, to be like Christ, we have to be compassionate. Isaiah 58:10. I'm going to read that to you because we're low on time. And if thou draw out thy soul to the hungry and satisfy the afflicted soul, then shall thy light rise into obscurity and thy darkness be as the noonday. That's a beautiful little analogy there. I love that. Be compassionate. I like to match vibes. You know what that means? I match your vibe. Jesus did not do that. A good example is my husband says, he said to me one time, he's like, JJ, if you're up in the crazy tree about something, I can talk you down. If I'm up in the crazy tree about something, you climb up there with me. And we're like, let's go. And so it's like, yeah. And I've had to work on that. That's matching vibes. So if someone's coming at you, don't match their energy. Okay? Be the opposite of that if it's not a positive thing. So we've got to be compassionate. We have to understand that everything we do needs to be rooted in love, which I'm going to talk about in this next session. Everything we do, we need to show love. And my teaching changed when I realized that everything those students are doing is either out of love or a call for love. And if we think about people in that way, the way that you're acting is because you love me, or it's a call for love. It's a call for something we need. I treat them differently. I treat them much differently. And number 6, to reflect Christ, we need to remain faithful. In Daniel 3, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego remained faithful even though it was going to cost them their life. King Nebuchadnezzar saw them as servants of the Most High God because of their faithfulness. He ends up saying that in the end. He's like, wow, you're servants of the Most High God. I want to know more about this because of how faithful they are. Being faithful in church, being faithful in your prayer life, being faithful encouraging others. It costs what? How many? Like 60 cents? What is a stamp? What are they now? 65 cents? 68 cents? Less than $1. I feel like we're on The Price is Right. Less than $1. You can send a note to somebody. You know how much it costs to text somebody? It doesn't cost a thing. You send somebody a text. You give somebody a phone call. Just want you to know I'm thinking about you. Listen, I have probably 200 different things, 200 different text messages on my phone that I will never get rid of. Maybe probably more than that, where I texted somebody because I just thought, I'm just going to tell them I'm praying for them today and encouraging them. No reason. Not mama's sick or, about to have surgery. No. I just felt, hey, I need to reach out to that person. JJ, I can't believe you sent this to me right now. This is what I'm going through. JJ, I just asked God for I just asked God for help. I just asked God for a friend. I mean, over and over and over. If you got a thought in your head, do it. Okay? Do it. Encourage other people. Remain faithful. Romans 12:2 says, be not conformed to this world. We have got to keep our minds on heavenly things. When our oldest born daughter, her name is Ellen, And, she was just that perfect first child. I mean, she didn't even want to cry. Like, she would just cry apologetically, I'm probably going to need to eat something soon. That kind of, she was really a perfect child. And we knew that because the second one, she had colic. If and so people that have had babies that have colic, I don't even ask them to raise their hand because it's so traumatizing. I had a lady one time say to me, I'm not really sure if my baby had colic. I said, then your baby did not have colic. It is horrible. It is horrible. But that first one, she was just this perfect little specimen of a human, and she wanted to learn to turn a cartwheel. That's all she wanted to do. She wanted to learn to turn a cartwheel. So about 4 years old, we put her in gymnastics. She called them nastics. So we'd take her to nastics every week, and it wasn't too long. She got the hang of a cartwheel, and she was cartwheeling all over the place. She was cartwheeling in our bedroom. She would cartwheel at the airport. She was cartwheeling in the foyer at church. You got to put shorts on under the dress. She was cartwheeling everywhere. And she was just, that's all. That was her favorite thing to do. Well, that progressed into handsprings, and that progressed into aerials, and that progressed into other things in the bars and all of the things that they teach. And pretty soon they were saying, hey, she needs to be on our competitive gymnastics team. And I was like, really? Oh, okay, what's that about? And then they said, well, we practice these days and these days and these days, and you pay these dues, and then our meets are on Sunday. And I was like, oh. I said, well, are they local? Are they here? Oh, no, they're out of town, and they're usually Sunday afternoons. And I was like, baby, we can't do that. We can't do that. And I just want to tell you, she's 27 years old, and even though she was really crushed as a 7-year-old, the youngest one, being asked to compete at that time, she turned out okay. But she learned a really valuable lesson too. That's not what's most important. And so many times sports and things that, bring us glory here on earth become more important than being faithful. I love it that you were so praised for being here today. I love it that you already got a pat on the back, not the arm flap, for being here and for being part of this, because it is good. And it does mean that your mind is on those kind of things. To recap, we have to give. To be like Christ, we have to be grateful. We have to be sorry. We have to bring others to him. We have to show compassion, and we have to be faithful. And I am going to continue this. We're going to go into something a little different in this next little section about Mean Girls, and I think you're going to enjoy it. And do I dismiss for a break, or are y'all going to do that? All right. You guys have how many minutes? You have be back in here at 10:15 class, and you have a break, and know that you're loved.
Hey! Okay, now it's on. Yes. Okay. I have a little announcement. If you've not gotten your name tag, the name tags have been moved up to right outside these two doors. So if you still haven't registered and gotten your name tag, you can go do that now. And as we're waiting for everyone to come in, I just thought, since the last session was opened with a little bit of a grandparent story, I thought I would tell one. I have 20 cousins, and I'm kind of in the middle. But the oldest cousin, they were going to allow him to name the grandparents instead of, telling him what their names were. And as you can tell by my age, and then him being 10 years older, he wanted to call them Daddy-O and Mommy-O. And they thought, no, that's a little too beatnik-ish. So my grandparents were called Dado and Mamo. But anyway, that was the little story behind that. And of course mine, our kids wanted the grandkids to immediately recognize us with a name. So we had to tell them a name. And my name, I go by Ann, but it's Anna. So I thought, I'll just move those letters around and have Nana. So that's how I came up with mine. Okay, let's get started with some singing. And I don't know if anyone still heard, I'll make this announcement again. If you've not gotten your name tag, it's out through these double doors straight ahead. Okay, all right. I think the song has been switched. Yes, okay. So we're going to sing 669, Take My Life and Let It Be.
Nice, right? Nice here. Okay. Take my life and let it be consecrated, Lord, to thee. Take my hands and let them move at the impulse of thy love. Take my will and make it thine. It shall be no longer mine. Take my heart, it is thine own. It shall be thy royal throne. Take my love, my Lord, I pour at thy feet its treasure store. Take myself and I will be ever only all for thee. Lord, I give my life to thee, thine forever, Lord, to be. Lord, I give my life to thee, thine forever, Lord, to be.
Okay, and then the next song, I just thought this is so appropriate. Let the beauty of Jesus be seen in me.
Beauty of Jesus be seen in me. All His wonderful passion and purity. May His Spirit divine all my being refine. Let the beauty of Jesus be seen
I may also tell a little story from back here. So 41 years ago today, I was blessed with a daughter, and today's her birthday, and her name is April, and I'm so blessed that she is here, and grateful for that, grateful. But the little story with this is I had 2 boys, and I had a sister-in-law who was also pregnant. So this was a long time ago, but some of you might remember this, that if you peed in some Drano and it turned one color, you were having a boy, and if it turned another color, you were having a girl. Well, my sister-in-law had 2 girls, and hers peed girl. Mine peed boy. But I got a girl. And I'm going to read now the scripture. Hebrews chapter 12, verse 14. Pursue peace with all people and holiness, without which no one will see the Lord.
Before we sing, I've been asked to announce that a ring was found in the restroom. It's on my finger, so I won't lose it. So if you are missing a ring, it has been found. Our first song will be number 508, A Wonderful Savior. We will sing the first, second, and fourth verses.
See
song before the lesson will be 453, Love Lifted Me.
I was sinking deep in sin, far from the peaceful shore, very deeply stained within, sinking to rise no more. But the Master of the sea heard my despairing cry. From the waters lifted me, now safe am I. Love lifted me, love lifted me, when nothing else could help. Love lifted me, love lifted me, love lifted me, when nothing else could help. Love lifted me. All my heart to Him I give, ever to Him I'll cling. In His blessed presence live, ever His praises sing. Love so mighty and so true merits my soul's and songs. Faithful, loving service to Him belongs. Love lifted me, love lifted me, when nothing else could help. Love lifted me, love lifted me, love lifted me, when nothing else could help. Love lifted me. Souls in danger, look above. Jesus completely saves. He will lift you by His love out of the angry waves. He's the Master of the sea. Billows His will obey. He, your Savior, wants to be saved today. Love lifted me, love lifted me, when nothing else could help. Love lifted me, love lifted me, love lifted me, when nothing else could help. Love lifted me.
Y'all are so lovely. Y'all are so lovely. I don't want this day to end, but I'll stay on time as much as possible. Well, Gina talked about PP. So it's her fault that you're about to get this story, because I debated highly on whether to tell you or not. But this happened last week. We have, okay, well, I gotta give you a backstory. Is this microphone better? Is this good? Is this better? Okay, good. Well, okay, so we have a 27-year-old girl who's married and has, that little baby who calls me Bougie. Bougie? And then we've got a 21-year-old who's also married. She has a little 7-week-old little baby who's just the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. And then about 3 years ago, we got a call. We've not been foster parents or anything like that. We got a random call, hey, can you take a baby? And we were in Tybee Island, and our youngest had just graduated high school a month before, about to be empty nesters, And they said, could you take a baby for a couple of months? And I literally said, Larry, can we take a baby for a little while? And he's like, okay. And I said, well, we're in Georgia. It's going to take a little bit to get, to where you are. We're not flying home for a couple of days. They said, that's fine. Come and get this little nugget. So he's 18 months old. His name is Slade. And we went and got him. And when we went to get him, we also noticed that his mom was very pregnant. And so when that baby was born, that baby came to live with us as well. And her name is Scout. And so we have full custody now. It's been, Scout is 2. Yeah, it's good. It's a blessing. And it's something that we didn't expect to be doing. So we have a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old. Yeah. And you're supposed to say, at your age? Yes. Right. And they're and it is a blessing. Because you know what? This is not the reward. This is where we do the work. And sometimes you're called to do things that you didn't expect to do, and that's okay. And sometimes you're called to do things you don't feel qualified to do, and that's okay. You just do them, and you do the best you can, and you move on. I know myself really well, so I have tissues. Okay, so Slade, they're very different. And I don't play the piano very often at home because our house is kind of set up to where the piano is in a room where there's like china and things like that, the formal living room. Y'all remember those? Our house has one of those. And so they really don't go in there very much. And so I don't play the piano at home very much, but I did a few months ago. I was practicing a piece, and I noticed little Slade came in there, and he stood on this side of the piano, and the little Scout toddled up there. She's just the cutest thing. She's like chunky, Oh, I love a chunky baby. She just toddled up there, and I got finished, and Slade said, Mama, that made my heart feel so good. I just love you so much. I didn't know you could do that. And it was so beautiful. Mama, my heart just feels so good. And like gushed and went on. And I'm just like, and Scout. And then she says, Mama. And I'm thinking, I'm going to get a double dose. And I look over there, and she's got her little arms crossed like this. And she said, you think you're good, don't you? Yeah. So anyway, prayers. I didn't have one like that. She's feisty, and I kind of like it. I kind of like that she's a little bit feisty because she's like little, and you don't want to lose that little, that bit of go-get-emness, So I don't want to squelch that, but I do want her to be kind. So. And, to be honest, I guess I need somebody to knock me down every once in a while, and she's there for that. So Slade came up to me the other day. He got home from school, and he said, Mom, I just want to see a beehole. And I said, what do you want to see? And he said, our teacher showed us a picture of her beehole. It gets worse. Gina talked about pee-pee first, so don't. So I said, Slade, you're going to have to give me more information. And he said, yeah, it's a beehole. That's what I know. It's a beehole. And that's all he would say. And I said, Slade, I don't know what you're asking for, but it doesn't sound like something that's going to happen. And I was about ready to call the school. And I said, can you think of anything else about it? He said, Mom, it's where the bees go in and they live in those holes. So you want to see a beehive? Yes. It's called a beehive. We're going to correct that one. Yeah. Right. That just happened last week. My heart was like, you get this, your heart just starts going. You're like, what are we doing here? So anyway, I may talk about Scout because she's 2, and 2's hard, and she's really, really smart. She's really intelligent, so that makes her kind of manipulative. Yeah, because she's a good watcher, so she'll watch what brother does. I mean, she's just, she's one of those. You may have had one like that. Like, we didn't potty train her. She just did that on her own. She said, if I wear underwear, can they be Elsa? And I said, yeah, but you can't use the bathroom in your underwear. She said, okay. that was the extent of it. Like nighttime, everything good. Like, so God smiled on us with that because, you know, they're not always like that, are they? Not all of mine were. But I want her to be kind and I want her to be nice because girls can be mean. Girls can be mean, right? Yeah. And I don't want to negate the fact that we've probably been mean too. Okay, that happens. And I don't, there's not ever good reasons, but sometimes there are certain times of the year that like we're feeling a little meaner, right? We just don't feel good and we have to deal with things, but that's everybody. That's everybody. I had never really had to experience meanness at the level I did when our youngest born was going through school. When she was in middle school, there was a girl that just hated her. I mean, did things like she had gotten a new Bible and she wrote in it with Sharpie, like just wrote in the Bible, like scribbled in the Bible. She would befriend her for a while. And then when my daughter would ask her, like, come over, she would, like, do very horrible things, like ruin dishes, break things, like, on purpose, steal things, pooped in our pool. I'm not making this up. That really happened. Like, I mean, just malicious, just horrible, horrible things. And I had never really had to deal with something like that at that level. I mean, just pretty extreme meanness and that kind of thing. And so I had to really do some, because, you know, as a mom, I mean, how do you handle that? How do you handle that? And so I had to really do some digging and some soul searching because I need to handle this correctly so that I can teach my child how to handle this correctly. And like I said before, a lot of times what people are giving you is a call for something they need, you know? And I know there was a lot of needs that were not being met at home, at the multiple homes she had. And so a lot of what I did with Emma at the time was helping her try to just kind of understand where she's coming from and that we have something she doesn't have as a family unit, you know, and as people that love you and support you and aren't using you as a pawn in their, you know, divorce drama and things of that nature. So there was a lot about that. And another thing I did was just remind her that Jesus understands. You know, just like we talked about before, Jesus did not have just this beautiful, wonderful life and everything was perfect and people loved him. I mean, it really wasn't like that. It really wasn't. It was really, really hard. And it was difficult. And I think the knowledge of what was going to happen to him too, like he was still 100% human, just as he was 100% God. And having the knowledge of what he was going to go through. And why? That's heavy. That's heavy on somebody to know that. I'm kind of glad that I don't know the future. You know, I'm kind of glad that we can just be here and be in this moment and try our best to do what we need to do right now, and not to have to worry about what's going to happen in the future. What is it, like 80% of the things that we worry about never happen? Did I just read that somewhere? Like, that's got to be true. The things that we're concerned about, the things that we worry, they never happen. And they're like, why are we worried about that? Yeah. Okay. So I was getting a pedicure a few years ago, and this woman walked in, and she was aesthetically the most beautiful woman I've ever seen in real life. Okay, not like in a movie or anything, but like in real life. And I was like, I'm fixing to talk to her about face cream, because she came in and she sat beside me. It's a thing. After 50, you got to really start paying attention. And so she's coming in, and I was like, she's just stunning. And she was one of those women that you couldn't tell how old she was. Have you ever, you know that? Like, she looked really young, but then she dressed more mature, so I wasn't sure. But I was like, oh, I'm getting some tips. But I never said anything to her because she started off telling them exactly how she wanted things done and complaining about the temperature of the water and not suggesting that maybe the water could be a little bit warmer, like complaining about everything, complaining about the brands that they had for their nail polish. I mean, and she very quickly became one of the ugliest people I'd ever seen. Because it's not about this. That has little to do with your beauty. And we all know people, bless you, who are aesthetically just not pleasant. Maybe we know some Leahs, right? From the Bible. Not like if your name is Leah, I'm not meaning you. That was bad. Just pretend I didn't say that. We all know some people that when you meet them, they become so much more beautiful, right? They just become so much more beautiful because their spirit and their love and their kindness and their giving and all of that. Favor is deceitful and beauty is vain, but a woman that feareth the Lord, she shall be praised. Proverbs 31:30. I love that, we're supposed to fear the Lord, and I think I do have a healthy fear, but I think my love for the Lord is so much greater than my fear of the Lord. The older we get, the more we can see what God has done for us, and it's so important. So where does this come from when people are mean? And I've said it before, hurt people. Many times this just comes from being hurt. You're hurt, and this behavior is sometimes taught. Maybe it's something that they saw at home. Maybe it's something they're experiencing at home, and that's what they know. Sometimes it comes from a place of fear. Sometimes people are afraid. I had my sister started a new job years ago, or had a person under her starting their new position, and they were just kind of mean. And she said, "This is not how this is how you were in the interview. I don't understand why you're acting this way." And she goes, "I'm terrified." So sometimes it comes from a place of fear. What does 2 Timothy 1:17 say to us? And this is something I want you to kind of put on your heart. We have, in our house, as you're turning there, we have a life verse. I don't know if y'all have ever done that. It's just where we take a verse, and in January we start just meditating on that verse. And that verse is what we have. Like every day we say it, we memorize it, we kind of apply it. And then the next year we'll do another verse. It's kind of life-changing. And it's just great for us. 2 Timothy 1:17 would be a great life verse. For God hath not given us a spirit of fear, but a power and a love and a sound mind. So if that fear does not come from God, where does that come from? Yeah. When you're afraid of doing something that's going to be good, that fear is not coming from God. God doesn't give you a spirit of fear. So that spirit of fear has to come from something else, something beneath God. And do you see how important it is to recognize who is in charge of your thoughts and your feelings? Because that's going to control how we treat other people. That's going to control a lot of things. Kill them with kindness, right? Is that how we handle some things? It's good. I mean, what are we supposed to do? We can't match vibes, can we? We got to stay out of those crazy trees. Sometimes fear, or sometimes this meanness comes from a place of jealousy. You have something that I want. You have a life that I thought I was going to have. You have a life that I wanted, or you have a thing that I wanted, or you have something that I feel like I deserve. And again, this is not coming from a godly place. And a lot of times I feel like we feel like we deserve things, and God is saying no for a reason, and maybe we don't know that reason yet. Maybe it's years down the road and we're like, "Oh, I see why you didn't let me have that. I see why this was not a good fit for me." Years ago, my husband was up for a job, and it was an extremely lucrative position. And he said, "I'm just going to put my name in the hat. This is not something that I'm going to, I already had a job. He had a job. It was fine." And so he did, and he was one of 3 people that they interviewed for this position. And the other people were like a formal admiral in the Navy, and then the other had been a CEO of his company, whatever. It was like he was up against some bigwigs, and he didn't get the job. But I mean, it was like, I don't know if you've ever been in that situation where you're like, whoa, our life would completely change. So he didn't get it, and that's fine. That company belly up 2 months later. Why did God say no? And he even protected that person, because that person that got that position had already been retired. It wasn't even something they had to have. So sometimes God says no, and sometimes we just need to be okay with that, and we just need to sit with it and just say, that's fine. Because God sees that big picture, and we're just seeing today, aren't we? We're just seeing today, and maybe yesterday, but we're not seeing the whole thing. It's so funny. I was in an administrative meeting at school, and they were talking about some things and some complaints and things like that. And all I kept saying is, they're not considering all of this. They're not looking at the big picture. you know? You're just looking at my child or my child's schedule or my child's teacher, and you're not seeing the whole entirety of it. And it's hard to do that. It's so important that we put some faith in our eldership because of that. A lot of times, you know, we're just seeing this little tiny bit, and the elders said no to something, but we're not understanding that they're seeing the whole thing, and they're taking all of this into consideration. That has helped me a lot as a member to think about that. Sometimes when people are mean, they're just needing something. My girls were always mean when they were hungry. What is that called, hangry? Hangry, yeah. It's a real thing, the low blood sugar, you know. And our little boy, Slade, when he wakes up in the morning, oh, he's so grouchy. And he just needs to eat. That is the absolute last thing that he wants to do. That he will do anything other than eat. And we're like, if you could just have a spoonful of peanut butter, your life would change and mine would too. But, you know, he does not want, that's the last thing he wants to do. And so sometimes, you know, sometimes people are mean because they're needing comfort. They're needing something they're not getting. One thing we ask our littles when they're behaving badly is, what do you need? What do you need? Try that. If you're a mom that still has littles at home, especially elementary school, because it'll kind of get them in touch with what they really need instead of just the whining and everything. I was teaching a kindergarten class, and it was their 50th day of school. So they had a sock hop, and they were in poodle skirts and the whole thing. It was the 50th day of school, and the teacher had given them cookies and real Coke and sent them to my class. And then they were in there for music class. And so I'm like, it's okay. I'm like, I can deal with this. If they're hyped up on the sugar, then we'll dance, you know. If they feel like they just need to sit and relax, I'll read them a story. I'll read them, you know, I'll play them some music. I'll sing them some songs. I'll go get out my guitar, you know, I got this. Well, neither of those things happened. They just start crying. And, I mean, one by one, they were just dropping to the ground and just crying. And I remember one little girl came up to me, and she was crying. She's just standing there, and her shoulders are crying. And I said, Audrey, I said, sweetheart, can you tell me what you need so I can help you? And she goes, I don't know. And she did it. They were just having a sugar drop, weren't they? But if you ask people what they need, I had somebody be unkind recently. And it was a friend of mine, and it was very uncharacteristic for her. And that's what I said. I said, what do you need? And it changed everything. And she said, I need this. This has happened. I need this. Because her needs superseded how she could treat people. That was all that was on her mind, and she had a big need. Let me tell you this. Let me look at my time. Oh, yeah, I'm going to tell you this story. So my dad, we were in Piggly Wiggly in Milton, Florida. Y'all ever heard of that? No, it's a grocery store. Yeah, so we're in Piggly Wiggly, and my dad and I were in line, and I was probably 8 years old. The lady, the cashier, was being very unkind, and she's slinging stuff, and she's speaking harshly, and people are being unkind to her. And this was, you know, happening. And I was very interested to see how my father, who's probably the most perfect person on the planet. Risa, you probably would disagree with me because you think yours is too, which he was pretty good. But yeah, we had like pretty perfect dads. And so I was really interested to see how he's going to react to this. She was being ugly. And people are being so harsh to her because that's, you know, they're matching vibes, right? So we get up there. And my dad said, hey, how are you? She didn't say anything. And so we're checking out, and Dad just kind of stayed quiet. And he gets ready to pay, and he leans in, and he said, can I help you with something? Can I at least pray for you? He said, I'm a minister. And she said, I just got a call that my son had an accident, and he's in the hospital. And if I leave work, I'll lose my job. I can't leave, and I can't go see about him. Her meanness had nothing to do with any of those people, did it? She didn't want to be there. And my dad said, the owner of this Piggly Wiggly's daughter spent the night at my house last night. His daughter's best friends with my older sister. He said, let me go call him. So he goes over to a phone, because we didn't have cell phones back in the 1900s. He goes over to the phone in the office because the owner wasn't there. We knew the man that owned that Piggly Wiggly. Do you know what he said? He said, get her. She doesn't have a car. Can you take her to the hospital? My dad said, we sure can. It's on our way home. Got her in the car, took her to the hospital. I mean, it was an easy fix, right? But you have to ask, what do you need? What can I help with? And don't be upset if they're like, I don't need anything. I just need you to get out of my face. You can do that too. But they might come back and say, you know what, I really do need something. And they're going to remember that you responded to them with kindness, okay? That's what we can do. Some people think that when we're being mean, it's actually a form of self-punishment. I read this book years ago because of this one thing, and it's called The 5 Agreements. Don't read it. It's by this like Indian guy that's like this Indian, I don't know, medicine man kind of thing. But I read it because one of the agreements that you make with yourself, and it has some good things in it, like one of the agreements is don't assume anything. Like when you come up on a car accident, don't just assume, oh, well, this happened and this, don't make assumptions. That's kind of good. Like, don't assume that you know what's going on, right? So that's a good one. Well, the reason I read the whole book, though, was one of the agreements that you make is not to take anything personally. And I'm like, boy, how are you going to say not to take something personally when they're coming at me? Like, they're saying, I hate you. Like, how are you not going to take that personally? And his philosophy was that a lot of times, when we're feeling down on ourselves, we project that onto someone else. But when you lash out at somebody, who feels worse? The person you lashed out on or you? You do, right? Because not only did I feel bad before, now I have guilt. Who is that says now I have guilt? Rex in Toy Story? When Woody's trying to get in the truck and he doesn't let him in the truck, y'all, I got a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old. And then, and all of a sudden they realize that, and he's like, oh, now I have guilt. Now you have all this guilt because of how you've treated somebody, so you feel worse. So he actually thinks it's like this circle of kind of punishment that we do to ourselves. So a lot of times there's really something going on there. We have anger, we have regret, we have so many different things that we feel because we lashed out at somebody. There's mean people all throughout the Bible. Oh, Cain in Genesis 49, Saul, 1 Samuel 20, Haman, didn't he get it? He got what was coming, didn't he? And Esther, 3 verse 5, Delilah, Queen Jezebel. Is she the one? Oh, she got eaten by dogs, didn't she? Wasn't she the one that the dogs, that's so gross. If you're teaching little boys, they love that. I have a little boy, so we're all into the gross stuff. Herodias that plotted John's death. Oh, she makes me so mad. The one that killed John, wanted John the Baptist's head on a platter. Oh, I still haven't forgiven her for that. Potiphar's wife, we talked about her. Gomer, what an ugly life she led. Gomer. And what a great story about how God takes us back. Sarah treated Hagar so harshly. Talk about some mean girls. There's some mean girl right there, right? So harshly she ran away, right? In Genesis 16. So there's lots of mean people throughout the Bible. But I want to talk about people that were not kind to Jesus for just a second. And I think one of the saddest verses in the Bible is in the book of John. It's easy to remember, too, because it's chapter 6 and verse 66. So I'm going to turn there as you do. But what had just happened is Jesus had just fed the 5,000. He had walked on water. He got into the boat, and then, did you know this? All of a sudden, when Jesus gets in the boat, it's on dry land. Did you know that? They teleported. Did you know that? Yeah, read it, John 6. All right, so he had done all of this, and then he goes into the synagogue and he teaches he's the bread of life. Did Jesus have the right to do that or not? Because he just fed 5,000 people with 5 loaves and 2 fishes. I would think he can call himself the bread of life, right? But when he did that, a lot of his followers got really upset about it. And read verse, where's the glasses? Read verse 66 with me. And from that time, many of his disciples went back and walked no more with him. He said one thing, and they're like, we're done. No, we're out. And not like 2 people, like a lot. So many that he then asked the 12, are you going to go too? And this makes it even sadder for me. It just hurts my heart to know that Jesus went through this. And they didn't say, no, we love you. No, you're our master teacher. No, you're showing us the way. They didn't say that. You know what they said? We don't have anywhere else to go. It's like the worst thing you can say. Like, we don't have anything better to do, so we'll follow you. Maybe it wasn't said in that manner. It sure was what it reads like, right? So Jesus had some hurt. He had a lot of things that happened to him. I mean, I feel like that's the equivalent of like, I don't want to be your friend anymore, right? So how do we handle mean people? Because we know there's mean people. I didn't even have to spend any time on that. We love them, right? You can get your little worksheet out now. It's not going to be for a grade. We love them, but JJ, I don't feel love. I don't feel love towards them. They have been mean to me. They've hurt me. I lost my job because of them. I lost friendships because of them. I had worked really hard on something and they ruined it. I don't feel love to them. Well, you know what? Good news. Love is not a feeling. It's a decision. Love is not a feeling. And if you are young, especially if you are unmarried, please understand this. You decide who you love. It is a decision. I remember very, very clearly liking my husband a lot, Larry, before we got married. I remember liking him, but I did not decide to love him until I met his family. He wasn't raised in Florida. That's where we met. That's where he was working down there. And so I didn't know his family. How do they interact with each other? How does his father treat his mother? How about church? They going every time? Because if I'm going to have kids with this man at some point, if I'm going to have children, can I send them over to his sister's house and be okay with that? Can I send them to Grandma and Grandpa's house and them take them to church on Sunday morning? All of these things were in my head because I had seen so many people have a hard life because of who they married. And it was just hard, and it was a struggle. And I didn't want that. I didn't want it. I wanted it to be easy. I wanted it to be easy to be a Christian. I wanted it to be easy to serve God. I wanted somebody to match my love for God. I wanted somebody to love God more than me. And then I just get to bask in that. And so I remember when I decided that I was going to give Larry my heart. I remember that. But I also remember withholding that and not loving him until I knew this was going to be the person that I was going to marry. Does that make sense? That's also why people can be married for 40 years and then all of a sudden decide they don't want to be married anymore. You decide who you love. And sometimes when you're having to pick up dirty socks off the floor, you have to decide to love them again. Sometimes it's not easy. Sometimes we decide daily who we love. Let me just prove this point. Who went to church, any church, not just this church, but who grew up going to a church? Was some part of a religious affiliation? Oh, I'm going to say like 98%. I'm not good at math, but that's a lot of you. Why did you go to church when you were, let's say, 7 years old? Why were you going? Mom and Dad said so. That's what we do. Mom and Dad told you to be at church. Now let's go to maybe age 12, 15, somewhere in there. Why were you at church then? Same, Mom and Dad said so, right? Maybe your friends were going. Maybe you enjoyed being with your friends. Maybe there was a cute boy in the youth group. I mean, and it doesn't hurt. All of those things. Nobody said I was going to church because I loved God. Nobody said that. Because that's not where you are. You had not made that decision yet. You were learning to, weren't you? And your parents were pushing you towards that. Why do you go to church now? Isn't it? Because you decided at some point that you were going to love God. And a lot of that is probably because you saw what he was doing in your life. I remember when Ellen was born, the perfect one, And my mom came to stay with us, as you do, you know. She came to stay with us. It was the first grandbaby, and she was with us, and I think I had Ellen on a Saturday. And so Wednesday night rolled around, and my mom said, I think I'm gonna stay home with you. And I said, okay. We kind of had a rough day. I said, that's fine. And at the last minute, my mom came in there, and she was dressed for church, and she says, no, I'm going to worship because God has been too good. And it becomes something different. And it's not out of duty. And it's not out of any obligation you have. I do this. I do Transform Ladies Conference. I do that because I love God. And because I'm so grateful. And I'm so undeserving of his forgiveness and his kindness. But at some point, we decide to love God. And decide to love God above everything else. I love him more than my husband. I love him more than my children. That's it. That's why we're here. That's the whole duty of man, to serve God and to keep his commandments. I do think we're supposed to be kind. We're supposed to be good people. We're supposed to raise our children well, and that's consuming, isn't it? It's just consuming. But number one, you've got to love. And I can't love God and not love other people. I can't do that. If I love God, it just fixes a whole lot of things, doesn't it? It just makes it so much easier to love other people regardless of how they act towards me. And love grows. It's something that'll morph and kind of change as we get older. My oldest daughter graduated from Mars Hill Bible School. She went to private school. She never missed a camp. She was at Maywood. She was at Horizons. She was at they used to have Go Camp there at Freed-Hardeman. It was so great, run by Brad Montague, where they just do service projects the whole week for other people. It was so great. I mean, she never missed anything like that. And she said, but when she got to college, she said, I just want to see what it's about. And, you know, because sin is kind of tempting, right? It's kind of intriguing, especially if you just haven't been around it that much. And so she said she went to one mixer. And she said, that's all it took, Mom. She said, I was looking around thinking, people are going to be talking about the way you're acting for the next 4 years. Or look at this. Like, she's like, I just watched and I just thought, I want no part of this. I want no part of this. You know, and so sometimes we have to make decisions as we go, right? Sometimes we have to, what is all this hype about, you know? What is all this? Wait a second, my decision is no, that I'm not going to be part of that. And that is okay. And I feel powerful knowing that it's like a decision. I feel powerful knowing that I can decide to love people or decide not to. And it's just easier life that way. Number 2, and I said this before, we don't match vibes. We don't. We act the opposite of how we're being treated when people are being mean to us. So if someone is being mean to us, we do not act that way. We act the opposite way. Luke 6:27 says, love your enemies, do good to those who hate you. And that's hard. It's hard. Just like my dad with the cashier, he could have just very easily not said anything at all to her, right? And just passed by and thought, well, she was just the meanest person. She had a real need. She had something that needed to be filled. Yeah. So I've had to work on matching vibes a lot because I went to public school. And I've had to really be careful about that. And if someone's coming to you and they're excited and they're happy and they're being joyful and they're full of love, definitely match those. But if it's the opposite, you have to work at not being that way as well. I do. It's kind of like my sister. I think there's an actual word for this. My older sister cannot talk to someone with an accent without taking on that accent. Yeah, I'm going to tell this story. This really happened. She can vouch for me. This really happened. So she's in junior league up in Northwest Arkansas. That's where she lives. And years ago, they had raised a ton of money for this children's home. And the lady that runs this children's home was this tiny little black woman, and she's so kind and so precious, and she has dedicated her life to these babies that need a place to be, and these mamas that need help getting out of abusive relationships. You know what I'm talking about, okay? And so they're at this gala where they're giving them, and my sister's best friend is with her, and she knows she has this issue, and this lady is thanking my sister. And she goes, I just can't believe how you've been taking care of these babies and these babies of my whole life. And I just can't thank you enough. And she's crying, and my sister's crying. And she said she looks over at her friend, and her friend was going. And my sister's like in the moment. And she's like, these babies are my world. And she's going on and on about how much she loves these babies. And my sister said she looks at her friend, and her friend says, do not talk. And so the more emotional it gets and the more heated, my sister finally just goes, we loving those babies too. And she said her friend was just like, stop talking. But it does not matter where you're from. If you have the slightest bit of an accent, she's going to take that on. I don't know. I think that's actually called something. I heard somewhere that there's an actual name for that. She cannot stop talking like you. And so they'll have missionaries at church, and they'll be like, ooh, where should they stay? Not with Cammie. Anywhere? No, not with Cammie. And so that's a thing. So we don't want to match people's vibes unless it's like a good thing. Somebody knew. Who was it that knows the Collins? Tanya? Yes. I'm right. Am I not right about them? They are sunshine and blessings and amazing people, and I aspire to be like them. So April has done a great job, number one. Let me say that, because I do enough of these to know, like, when people have got things together. April has been so good to reach out to me and just been absolutely perfect in this. Your song leaders, do you know that a lot of times I'll go to these things and there's like one person that kind of, I'll do it, but I really don't want to. No, y'all have like 3 different ones already today. Wonderful. That's so great. And they did such a great job. I'm a music teacher, I can say that. But I love a good scripture reader, and y'all have had good scripture readers as well. And some of you will remember when Princess Diana passed away. Do you remember the funeral? Everybody watched it. At that time of life, you didn't have the ability to like record things. Like, you just had to watch it in real time. And I'm telling you, everybody was watching that funeral. And when that funeral was happening, her brother did probably one of the best scripture readings I've ever heard of 1 Corinthians 13. It's so good. And if you get a chance, you can YouTube it now and like watch it. But I feel like he did such a great job. And if you'll allow me to say it in this way, this is not 1 Corinthians 13, but this is what I gather when I read that. Love never gives up. Love cares more for others than for self. Love doesn't want what it doesn't have. Love doesn't strut. Love doesn't have a swelled head. Love doesn't force itself on others. Love doesn't always have to be first or right. That one got me. Love doesn't fly off the handle. Love doesn't keep score of the sins of others. Love doesn't revel when others grovel. It doesn't take pleasure. It takes pleasure in the flowering of youth. Love puts up with anything. Love trusts God always looks for the best, never looks back, but keeps going to the end, and love never dies. Number 3, how to deal with mean girls. We show them how to act. We show them how to act. In education, this is called modeling. We're supposed to model how people are to do things, and especially when I'm teaching, vocal music, how to stand, and how to stand, how to breathe, where your chin needs to be, all of the things. And one of my students, and many times I'll have students that'll come to my office and they'll have an issue and they'll need me to talk with them and pray with them and things of that nature, and I can. And it's so great to be at a private school where that is just fine to do. And a girl came to my office and she said, she was very upset, and she said, I don't have any friends. And I said, I understand that. I said, well, are you friendly? And she said, no, I'm not. And she's not. Like, well, let's start there. So sometimes maybe she didn't see how to act, and she needs some modeling. And to love the mean girl is not to change her. We're loving the mean girl and we're showing her how to act, but that's not necessarily how to change her. That's not our purpose. Our purpose is to honor God, okay? Because sometimes it's disappointing when you're like, oh, this person is continually mean to me, and I'm showing them kindness, and I'm showing them love, and I'm doing all the things I'm supposed to be doing, and they're not changing. Well, that's not your job. Your job is in how you treat them, okay? And hopefully you're honoring God by doing what's right. We're called to love our enemies, and a byproduct or an end product of that could be that they change. But your goal is to obey God, not to change somebody. People don't change easily, do they? They don't. And when we love, in my opinion, we are rarely doing what we want to do. What's the one chore that you don't like doing? Cleaning toilets. Mine's so odd. Unloading the dishwasher. Why? I don't even understand why that's a thing. Like, I'm fine with putting them in the dishwasher, it's unloading it. I don't even mind putting laundry away. I love laundry, as a matter of fact. I don't like unloading the dishwasher. But we still do it, right? It still has to be done. It's just something that's not my favorite. But you know what? My husband, every single morning, that dishwasher's unloaded. Yeah, because my love language is acts of service. So, and he knows that. I'm just telling you, it's a good thing. It's a good deal. And if he doesn't get to it because the 2-year-old was up during the night and he got up with her or whatever, that's fine. I'll unload it. But it just tells me I love you when he does things like that. Luke 6:27 through 31. I'm going to give you just a second to look at this. Luke 6:27, verse 31. I love the book of Luke, but I always feel like he's so much smarter than me. I always feel like he's on a different level of intelligence than I am. It says, but when I say to you who hear, love your enemies, do good to those who hate you, bless those who curse you, and pray for those who abuse you. To one who strikes you on the cheek, offer the other also. And from one who takes away your cloak, do not withhold your tunic either. Give to everyone who begs from you, and from one who takes away your goods, do not demand them back. And as you wish that others would do to you, do also to them. Treat people how you want to be treated. So let's look at this passage closer. This is my takeaway. Love girls you don't like. We're talking about mean girls. Do good to girls who don't like you. Pray for the girls who curse you. Pray for those who are mean to you. Don't get even. Vengeance is mine, saith the Lord, right? Don't get even. And give till it hurts. Treat others like you want to be treated. I have a sweet friend that used to teach with me, and she said that her father would say growing up, well, if I had to talk with them, this is what I'd say. She said, my father never said that to anybody. He'd always talk about what he was going to say and never say it because he was really, really kind. And if you want to know the true character of a person, watch how they treat people that can do nothing for them. Or better yet, watch how they treat their enemies. That's a true character of a person. I've always heard to traveling with people, whew, that sure shows things, doesn't it? I love to travel. I don't know if y'all like to travel or not. This was quite a trip, but I do love to travel, and that brings out different emotions, doesn't it? Okay, if I have time, I'm going to tell you a travel story at the end, so y'all remind me. I'll say, what was that story I was going to tell you? You say, a travel story, okay. if I have some time. So I've said to, I don't know if I put this on there, but to write down maybe somebody that's been unkind to you. And this doesn't have to be somebody that's been unkind to you that's still alive. It's okay to forgive people that are already past, because that's very good for us to do that. And I have 6 different things there. Love whoever that person is. Do good to, pray for, don't get even with, give, and treat like you want to be treated. That's hard. That's hard, isn't it? And you might be saying that person doesn't deserve that. I know, neither do we. Neither do we. If it was easy, it wouldn't require faith. For it is God who works in you to will and to act according to his purpose, Philippians 2:13. If it was easy, it wouldn't be a big deal, and it wouldn't require faith, but we need that. Okay, so back to Luke 6. I'm going to look at 32. If you're still there. If you love those who love you, what benefit is that to you? For even sinners love those who love them. And if you do good to those who do good to you, what benefit is that to you? For even sinners do the same. If you lend to those from whom you expect to receive, what credit is that to you? Even sinners lend to sinners to get back the same amount. It's a good point, isn't it? If we're just doing good to people who are just doing good to us, right? Yeah. And it makes me think, while we were yet sinners, Christ died for us. We weren't doing anything for Christ. We did nothing for him, and he still died for us and died for our sins. And maybe you have a mean girl in your life to give you a way to prove to God that you'll follow him no matter what. What if she's like your refiner's fire? What if she's the thing that's the trial that's in your life to purify you, to bring you closer to God? And that happens, doesn't it? You got something traumatic going on in your life. You're closer to God. You're praying more. You're in the Word more. Colossians 3:5 says, so put to death sinful earthly things lurking within you. Galatians 5:24 says, those who belong to Christ have nailed the passions and desires of their sinful nature to his cross and crucified them there. Sometimes we just need to get over ourselves. You just need to get over ourselves. My daughter was talking about an issue that she had, and she had talked to me about it and with someone at work, and I texted her a bunch of verses, and was texting her, and all of these things to take a look at and make sure that this is not something you're dwelling on and everything. And she called me back. She goes, Mom, I'm not sitting with this. I'm not sitting in this. Do you understand that? Don't sit in it. Somebody's upset to you, don't stay there. Don't let that fester. Pray for them, be kind, do what you can, and move on. Because it's that sitting there with it that gets us, right? Then it stirs up, and then now we're bitter, and now we've got hard feelings, and now next time I see them, I'm just not going to say anything. No, we can't. We can't be like that, because that's how the world is. That's how all those people were out at Walmart smoking. I was like, every single person. I'll tell you what tipped me off was there was like a little 8-year-old boy walking in, and he was smoking too, and I was like, oh, it's just that cold. Takes me a minute. But sometimes we just got to get over ourselves and maybe understand that this is maybe here to help us be a better person. Okay? The book of James is my favorite. If you've ever heard me speak, I've talked about the book of James because I spent a year, I've actually done it more than once, reading the book of James every day. Don't be impressed because it takes 12 minutes. It's not long at all, but the book of James is practical Christianity, and I love it. Give me a plan. Tell me exactly what to do with my life to be a Christian, and I can do that. Book of James. How does that start off? Count it all joy. When, though? When are we going to count it all joy? When things are good, everything's going perfectly, and your husband got that job? No, when you're going through stuff. You count it all joy because God's going to use that for good. You thought it was for bad, but God's going to use it for good. God's going to use it for his glory if you keep the faith, if you don't get bitter, okay, if you act right. Hebrews 12:14 says to make every effort to live in peace with all men and to be holy. Dying to self means turning the other cheek. Dying to self means not saying what you want to say, responding in love. Dying to self means that you're remembering how much grace God has given you, and so you are happy to give that to other people. And I truly, truly believe every single thing that a person does is an expression of love or a cry for love, okay? And if we think of things that way, it's going to change how we think of people and how they're treating us. Some things that can help us prevent being a mean girl, because come on, we're all mean girls sometimes, right? Yeah, sometimes it's just, and we see it so much, it's all around us. Sometimes our work environment is like that. Sometimes our home environment's like that. And it's just around us. There's a few little tips here from a former mean girl. And I was, especially in high school, not necessarily to other people, but I was just too busy for anything. I was really, really busy trying to make my mom happy. And something's got to give when you're really, really busy with things. And what gave is that I just really didn't have time to be nice to people. Yeah, that was a hard lesson. As a matter of fact, when my husband saw me at church for the first time, he asked his friend, he said, "Who is that?" Because I was cute. It's a long time ago. He said, "Who is that?" And he said, "Ooh, you stay away from her. She's mean." Yeah. And then my husband told me that like years later, because I guess he was intrigued by that. I don't know. But he told me that years later, and I was like so offended. And then I got to thinking, no, he's right. He's right. I guess that was how people perceived me, because I just didn't have time for it. Anyway, because it does take some effort to be nice, does it not? Yeah. It takes effort. It takes effort. So here's some things. Grown-up girls are not defensive. We're not going to be mean girls. We're going to be grown-up girls, right? What did my mama say? Put your big girl britches on. Y'all ever heard that? Is that an Alabama thing? Y'all got that in Tennessee too? Put your big girl britches on. We're going to act like a big girl. So grown-up girls aren't defensive. We can be confronted without losing our cool. Matthew 22:37 through 39, Jesus said, "Love the Lord with all your heart and your neighbor as yourself." And when we do that, we're going to respond in a loving way, regardless of what is said to us. Grown-up girls don't gossip. God hates it. Leviticus 19:16. Don't do it. Don't listen to it. I have never had anybody get upset with me when I've said, "I'm so sorry. I don't need to hear this." Never. And I have said it dozens of times. And a lot of times gossip happens under the guise of, "I'm going to need you to pray for this person because this is it." Do we really need to know that? I can pray for you without knowing what you're going through, because God knows, okay? We've got to be so careful about that. We've got to be so careful about that. Do not gossip. But like I said, all I say is, "I don't think I need to know that. I don't think I need to know." And no one's ever gotten mad at me for saying that, okay? And you don't get mad if somebody says that to you either, all right? If they've stopped you and they prevented you from gossiping. Because sometimes we really do have good intentions when we're telling things about other people that they're going through and that they might, need extra support and need extra help. But we've got to be very, very careful that doesn't creep into gossip. Okay, so grown-up girls don't gossip. Grown-up girls don't seek revenge. Revenge is a sin. That is God that is going to have revenge, not us. He has the power to punish, not you. Do not try and be God and take matter into your own hands. No revenge. Don't do it. Don't even think about it. Don't let your brain go there. Things that you could do to hurt that person who has hurt you. Grown-up girls are spiritual, not religious. It's not about warming a pew. It's not about checking a little box that you came to church 3 times a week. It's about loving God. It's about diving into the Word. It's about it being part of your life. Just take a verse. Just take a verse for this year and let that be your verse that you meditate on. If you're just starting out, read the book of James, 12 minutes. It takes 12 minutes. Read the book of James every day. Just read a psalm. Read a psalm every day. Write down things you're grateful for. We had a class at Heritage when I was getting my Bible degree. Heritage Christian University is a wonderful school, and they have lots of online degrees in Bible, online classes you can take so you don't have to be there, and they're really great. You can even audit them so you're taking them and not necessarily having to get a grade. But when I was going through school there, we had a class where we would write a psalm every day and then write a prayer with kind of the vibe of that psalm. And it was a really good exercise in saying, what does this mean? How am I going to take this psalm that was written so long ago and apply it to my life? Grown-up girls, are spiritual and not religious. Christianity is not a list of laws and do's and don'ts. It's a relationship with Jesus and a life of serving God. Grown-up girls aren't afraid to look stupid. Who are you trying to please? Who are you trying to please? And if you make a mistake or you look stupid or whatever, who cares? Who cares? Don't get offended. I teach voice, I'm a choral director, so there's a lot of times, I'll tell the kids, especially the first couple of weeks of school, because middle school, those voices are all over the place. I mean, we've got cambiata happening where voices are changing, constantly. I'll have some kid come in and he's a tenor before Christmas and he comes back from Christmas break and he's talking like this. I'm like, oh, things happened. So I tell the kids, listen, your voice is going to crack. And that's fine. We're just going to laugh about it because my voice is going to crack too. And we're going to laugh about it. And I purposely make mine do to make them feel better. And we laugh because it's funny. Because, when you're 12, those kind of things are funny. But who are we trying to please? Who are we trying to please? And sometimes it's all about appearances, isn't it? Don't worry about your image. You just love other people. Grown-up girls care for others. I just think it's so important to say, how can I help? When people are upset with you, totally ignore what they're upset about and say, how can I help? And you know what? If it doesn't matter, then just say you're sorry. Because relationships are more important than being right. Aren't they? Well, she shouldn't have got her feelings hurt, but she did. So just say you're sorry. Well, I didn't mean to hurt her. I didn't even say it that way. Somebody said, just say you're sorry. Just say you're sorry. If it's going to fix the situation, if it's going to mend it, and I'll tell you, I've not been married as long as some of you have. I think, why did I even bring this up? I think it's like 32 years. I'm not good at math. It's somewhere in there. But the one thing that has helped us is if it doesn't really matter, I try to be the first to say I'm sorry. And he has that same philosophy. Because my relationship is more important than being right. That was hard for me because we're both middle children. You should never marry. Middle children should never marry. That's the worst combination. Did you know that? Look it up. I'm not lying about it. Oldest can marry youngest. Middle can marry anybody but a middle child. That is the worst possible combination because we're so competitive, right? It's hard. Anyway, we make it work. So be the first to say you're sorry. And that's okay. That's free. Grown-up girls hold each other accountable. I need an accountability partner. Jesus holds the church accountable for its actions in Revelation. Paul admonishes many churches throughout the New Testament. Man, Paul, I feel like every letter of Paul is like, hey, tell everybody, hey, so glad I'm praying for you. What are you doing? Like, get it together. Oh, tell Timothy I said hello. It's just like, every single letter, right? And he admonishes them pretty harshly. And I'm not saying go to somebody in a mean way, but it's like, look, and once again, come at it from the standpoint of, listen, I'm a sinner. I've got some things that I struggle with. But is this something I can help you with? I've noticed this is happening. I noticed I haven't seen you at church. What's going on? Can we pray together? I'm so good at that. Because I don't have many answers. But when somebody calls me and says, this is what's going on, this is what's happening in my life, I can pray. I'm like, we're going to pray right now. Because I don't know. I have a Bible degree. I'm about to have a master's in Bible. I still don't know. But I can pray. I can do that. That is free. And it's okay to hold each other accountable. And be kind when you're doing that. Make it private. Don't go to other people and say, I'm fixing to go to her and tell her something. No. Do it the right way. Grown-up girls forgive. 1 Corinthians 13:5, Jesus forgives us, so we are required to forgive others. Matthew 6:14. If my forgiveness to other people in some way was related to Jesus' forgiveness to me, that changes everything, doesn't it? Because I need a lot of forgiveness. So if me not forgiving somebody else is going to withhold Jesus forgiving me, I'm going to be really careful about that. I'm going to be super careful about that because I need a lot of forgiveness. Number 9. I don't know if you've got a number. I don't even know if you have this on your paper. Grown-up girls are happy for the wins of their friends. It does not have to be all about you. Be happy when other people do well. I have a 6th grade class, and they, in 6th grade, they still like me. Like, I'm a rock star in elementary, like rock star. I have a class every Friday that when I walk into the classroom, it's a 2nd grade class, they give me entrance applause. I don't know why that started. They literally clap and will keep clapping until I bow. And so I try to do a different bow every time. Y'all, it's elementary. But I have a group of 6th graders, and they are absolutely precious, and they're really vibrant, and they're full of life, and they're just so energetic. And they are good. They're good singers. They're very theatrical. We did musicals. What did we just do? Frozen. We did Frozen back in January. And, they're really great. And they're not afraid to, still, be themselves and be kind of out there and everything. And so we were having auditions for solos this past week for our spring concert. And, there's 4 solos and there's 8 girls auditioning, It was more like 12, but you know what I mean. And then I announced it yesterday who got it. And I know some of those girls were just I just ruined their weekend for not giving it to them. But you know how they reacted? Oh, I'm so happy for you. You're going to do great. I knew when I heard you were going to get that. Could they have done just as good a job? Yeah, that's the hardest part of my job, which is not really that bad. So, but be kind and be happy when other people have things that go well. For the wins of their friends, grown-up girls leave others feeling good about themselves. Be a hype girl. You know what that means? Be somebody that hypes somebody else up. Be someone oh, this is so great. Some of y'all were talking about Transform Ladies Conference, and y'all were being good hype girl people because you were saying, I went and I loved it and I came back and I talked it. Be that kind of thing when something good happens. Be a hype girl. Be somebody that cheers and claps when other people do good, regardless of how big or small the accomplishment is. Be a hype girl. I'm going to tell a story about what? Oh, yes. I don't know how I'm going to tie it in, but it's a great story. So we'll make it happen. So we travel a lot, and this was pre-COVID, and so our youngest born daughter was still in high school at the time, and she is very well traveled. We did a lot of mission work to Ukraine and to London. We had our church fully supported a church there in London, so we would go constantly, and she had great friends there, and it was anyway, she's well traveled. And I made my children, I made them find the way through the airports. I made them look at their, ticket and say, okay, well, we're at gate 5C. And then they had to go find that because, you don't speak the language in a country. It's important to know how to navigate things. And so we would let them make mistakes, if we weren't going to miss the plane. We would let them go the wrong way and try to figure things out. And a lot of countries, when you're going through, you have to recheck your bags. You have to go get your baggage, and you have to recheck it. And just, the whole thing. So we made sure that our girls really knew how to do that because we have such a love of travel, and we wanted them to we wanted to have confidence if they were traveling on their own. So all that to say, Emma knew how customs work. She knows how TSA works. She knows the questions they're going to ask when you're coming back into the country. She knows what to say. She knows. Well, we were in Italy and we're coming back, and when we landed in America, I don't even remember where we were, like Atlanta, I don't even know. When we landed in America, we still had another flight to get us back home. We turned our phones on and got some extremely bad news that one of our really good friends had passed away. And it was very unexpected and very traumatic, and especially for Emma, who was probably 14 or 15 at the time. And so she was very visibly upset, okay? And so we're deplaning, and we're getting all of our stuff collected, and I said, Emma, we're going to go through TSA. You know what they're going to ask us, And so she's like, and she's just so upset. She's a very emotional person anyway. And so we get up there, and the TSA agent asked me all the questions and asked my husband all the questions. But before he started, I said, we just got some really, really horrible news. And, we're upset. And he's like, okay. And so then he starts asking Emma questions, and he starts asking her things like, where do you go to school? How long have you gone to that school? What street is that school on? What are some streets around your house? And she knows this is not the line of questioning that they ask. They ask, where have you been? How long have you been there? Where did you stay? What was your purpose of your visit? That kind of thing. So she starts getting mad. And, she's already upset. And so she's crying and she's mad. And all of a sudden I realize what is happening. Because here we have a teenage girl coming back into the country who is visibly very upset. And it looks like possibly that we could be, what do you even call it, trafficking her? Taking her, right? And so this TSA agent is checking all of her information as he's speaking to her to make sure that is in fact where she lives and that is in fact where she goes to school. I don't know how they know all this. They could like magic, computers or whatever. But he's like typing all of this stuff in. And he's told us not to say anything, not to give her any answers. And we didn't. But I started realizing what's happening, and she's being a little bit obstinate about it because she knows this is not their normal line of questioning. And so once I realized, I said, Emma, answer the questions. Answer the questions. And so she kind of gets herself together and answers the questions, and eventually he is satisfied enough to let us go on. And so we go to get our bags, because you have to check your bag. It's a whole process. You have to get your bags and then recheck them and all this kind of stuff. And so we're going to get our luggage. And I said, Emma, it looked like we were taking you against your will. And he was protecting you. He was making sure you were with who you were supposed to be with. And it's upset me so much at the time because we had another flight to catch and it was taking so long and, we had so much to do. But then when I stepped back from it, I so appreciated that. I was so grateful that he took the time to make sure. And so when we're going through life, when we're trying to reflect Christ, when we're trying to be a good person, when we're having to deal with mean people, step back. Step back before you react and take a look at it. What is God trying to do with this? What lesson am I supposed to learn from this? Because it'll change the way that you handle things, right? Y'all have been such a blessing to me. Preparing for this was such a blessing for me. I wish we could stay here all day, but I know there's lunch ready. And I hope you guys have I hope you've gotten something out of this. I have definitely gotten something out of preparing for this and getting to meet you. I hope that you know that you're loved.
Yes, thank you, JJ, for that. I'm going to lead us in a closing prayer, but before that, a couple of announcements. There'll be more announcements after my prayer, so please stay seated. And also, I'm going to go ahead and give thanks for lunch. I wasn't told to do that, but I'm going to do that. Okay. And a reminder with lunch, we do have some gluten-free options, so if you need that, those will be available. So please just ask if you don't see them. So let's go to God in prayer at this time. Dear God, we thank you so much for so many things. We thank you for you, for being our Father, our Creator, the ruler of all things. We thank you for this day, the beauty of the day, the physical beauty, the spiritual beauty, just all the blessings of this day. We thank you for all the men and women who have gone into making this day possible. We thank you for blessing JJ and her abilities to speak to us, to deliver the message today. We thank you for her safety in arriving here today. We thank you for all the women who are here today, all the congregations represented, all the families represented. We thank you for the Young Ladies' Day and the decision that those young ladies made to be here today as well. We thank you for the food that we will be partaking of here soon. We again thank you for the women and men who have made that possible. And we hope that that food nourishes us and strengthens us throughout the remainder of the day. We hope that as we leave today and we go on throughout the next week, that we meditate on the message of today and that we reflect Christ in all things, and that we show kindness and love at all cost, and that we do all this for your glory. We thank you for Christ. We thank you for all that he means to us, for his blood and the hope of heaven that we have in him. Forgive us when we fell short, Lord, and help us to do better. It's in Jesus' name that we pray. Amen.
Isn't it wonderful to come to an event like this and get reinforced, encouraged, built up to continue to live the Christian life? Hopefully you've learned something new. I've learned a lot. My cup is full. I hope yours is too. We would like for you to stay for lunch. We have plenty of food downstairs. And it's already ready. All you have to do is go down there and get it. There is a place for a photo if you'd like to snap some photos of you and your buds while you're here. We take pictures for everything else. Why not take pictures for this? Because one day you can look back and say, I remember that day, and this is what I learned that day. Thank you, JJ, for that. We do have a survey that we'd like for you to fill out. There's a QR code. For those of you that are young and know how to do that, feel free. If you're not, there's nothing wrong with that. You can fill out one online. If we need to give you more instruction about that, we will. And I just want to say one little thing. Remember, when you go home, the people you're going to be around have not been here with you today. They're going to have dealt with lots of different stuff. Don't let Satan steal your joy when you have to go into reentry. Go ahead.